Welcome. Jean Eaton of Information Management. Welcome. This is Jean Eaton of Information Managers. Thank you for joining us today for our target. And today we have a Google with Randy Brzozowski. Randy Brzozowski is the Chief Rogue and Bottle Washer of a Communications Marketing Department in Edmonton, Alberta. The company is called Group of Rogues. And he has a background in acting for stage and film and has been involved in communicating valuable, entertaining messages in various media to audiences across the country. Marketing and advertising strategy from the Group of Rogues. Not being involved with social media is rapidly becoming equivalent to not being involved with telephone, says Randy. So today we're going to talk about how can primary healthcare practices use social media to improve marketing for your business and services to your clients and patients. Welcome, Randy.
Welcome. Thank you very much for having me.
I'm delighted that you're here. Our first experience was doing Google Hangout on air, so the next one will be even better, but everybody has to start somewhere, and I'm delighted that we can start this together. Thank you.
We'll keep the bar nice and low so it's easy to clear next time.
Good strategy. Okay, so today we're going to talk about what is social media and how could we use social media in a business, and in particular addressing the unique concerns about healthcare and the privacy requirements in a healthcare type of business. Generally speaking, what types of things are included in social media? What is social media?
Oh, generally speaking, what is social media? That's a big question, but I'll try and encapsulate it in less than the half hour that we have. Social media I mean, the stress is on the word social, and it's about interactions between people. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Pinterest, LinkedIn, blogs, all of these sorts of things are ways to interact online. Google Hangouts, for instance, we're all interacting at the moment. The important thing about social media is that because it's an interactive communication between people, there's a humanity that is part of social media that's inescapable. I'm sure, seen companies that have tried to turn social media into another big advertising tool. So they'll get a Twitter account and they'll flood it with sales, coupons, ads, offers, that sort of thing, and surprisingly not get a lot of followers, because that's not what social media is about. Social media is connecting people to people, and in the healthcare industry, that's important. I would hazard a guess, you may agree or disagree, that the healthcare industry is one of the most intimate industries that we encounter in our daily lives when we're dealing with service providers of any sort. If you have a dentist who's poking around in your mouth, you have a physiotherapist who's teaching you how to walk again, you have a massage therapist, a doctor that's finding out what's wrong with you. It is a very personal industry, and social media's strength is in removing the corporate facade and helping you to feel connected with a person, which is vital and essential on social media, and is one of the first big tips I can give for using social media in a healthcare practice, is the personality of it. There's a quick summary, which I'm sure we'll delve in a little more as we continue.
Right. So social media is, as you said, is the social aspect of that, who's involved. In healthcare, it's really important that we don't get engaged with unique identifying information with our about our patients. But we still need to be able to promote the business. And perhaps a really key way of being able to use social media is to be able to share the vision and the purpose of your business. Why are you a community? What are your goals about getting people from point A to point B? How are you a community? We also want to be able to use social media to be able to make sure that the patients can find us. We can't email or send text directly to unique individuals or our potential patients because we have a lot of restrictions in healthcare, so we can't go out and address them individually. But what we could do is create a presence in social media so that if that person needs a physiotherapist or needs a doctor of a particular type, they can go out to social media, find somebody, learn a little bit more about that I want rather than that person because I like what they're about. I like how they're engaged in the community. I like how they support the community. I like what types of things are important to them, what types of issues and content and education they can provide. So social media use of from a business perspective, even if we can't reach out and touch a particular Bob and Betty, we can make a presence so that the Bobs and Bettys can find us.
Exactly. And for those who don't know, Bob and Betty is a phrase that we use all the time when we're talking about our ideal client, because you won't necessarily be able to reach much as you'd like to. One would like to think that healthcare is something that everybody needs, and everybody does. This is true, but any business, any organization has customers or clientele that really connect with it and connect on, as Jean said, the values level, the values proposition, and customers that don't. And so this social media is a way to really craft your voice, and a caring, compassionate one, so that you can connect with those people who will connect with you. And again, as Jean said, it's about building your presence in the community, and it's also about positioning yourself as an expert, because that's what people want. They want experts in healthcare. They don't want amateurs in healthcare. And social media can be used as a way to build your profile as having expertise in a field, so that people get to know you. There's a part of the sales path called know, like, trust. You need to know a service provider before you'll ever go to them. I mean, if I don't know you exist, I'll never walk in your doors. Once I know you exist, then I need to decide whether or not I like you. There are some people who, for instance, in the spa industry, just as a tangential example, but not that far off, because it is another intimate personal services sort of industry. There are some people who like the really clean aesthetic of an almost medical, white, clean, not a lot of art on the walls, institutional, not in a bad way, aesthetic when they're going to go in and have spa services. There are some people who like the earthy, the rocks, the trees, the grass that's actually growing in pots around the spa, so you get that really earthy feel. Some people will like one, some people will like the other. That's part of the process, knowing, liking. And again, that knowing and liking also has to be about you as the service provider. If you're going to be doing chiropractic on me or dentistry, I need to like you before I let you poke around in my mouth. But the third stage is trust. Now I need to trust you. I need to trust that you know what you're doing. These three stages have always been a part of the sales process: know, like, trust. But before social media, the best you could hope for is getting through know, thanks to TV ads and a listing in the yellow pages. Maybe you'd get into like if those ads were really well done in conveying that personality. But now in social media, you can start to have those interactions, engagements with your customers before you ever see them, and you can actually get people through know, through like, and into trust before you have a personal contact with them. And that is a really big advantage in trying to bring people into your doors, in that people are still going through those three stages. But with your social media conversations, if you're responsible about them and authentic about them, you can go a lot farther down the sales path before you ever actually have to be in front of the person. And that is of immense value.
So you've said a couple of things that I think are really key and important, Randy. The know, like, trust sales path. Mm-hmm. Make sure that your message is real and authentic. And those are things that we can position our business and our individual service providers within our business out into the public community, so that they can find us and make the choice to come and see us rather than their competitor down the street. Absolutely. So let's follow up on those suggestions that you have and talk about how can a healthcare business then create the business or develop a presence in the community so that clients can find you. So let's assume that this is a new business, or perhaps a business that's been in practice for a while but has never started with social media.
Mhm.
Where would you suggest that we get started? How can we create a presence in that social media community so that people know that we're on the street and how to get into the doors and make a choice to come and see us?
There, there are a number of different ways to approach that very valuable question. A large part of it depends upon the size of your practice. Um, some practices are very small in that it's, and this also becomes a marketing thing in that are you positioning yourself as the healthcare provider, or are you positioning your practice? And again, part of that is based on size, but part of that is also based on just your approach, your values, and how you want to connect with people. We could have a whole hangout about those two different approaches and which is better and which is worse, but we'll leave that to another day. Suffice it to say, one simple way is if you have a large practice, if you have a doctor's clinic with 5 or 6 doctors, um, that we can consider that a larger practice because it's not just one doctor and his 5 friends who are supporting him versus if you are a physiotherapist or a chiropractor, and you're just the only person doing that in your office. It's a much smaller practice. If you are a smaller practice and you're positioning yourself, then what you want to do is you want to be the identity, the voice behind the social media. If you're a larger organization, you can be the organization. You can create an organizational voice behind the social media. Now, it's important to remember and to keep in mind that even if you are a practice with 5 or 6 or 7 doctors and you are creating an organizational social media presence, that it's still got to be very human. The primary healthcare networks, some of them have some excellent people that are doing that very thing. Their social media is branded as the primary care network, but it's a very human, very authentic, very personal presence. Um, if social media is new to you, I would strongly suggest to dip your toes in the water with a personal account that's not associated with your business. Just you. You can go, and Twitter is a great way to start on this because it's easy to set up Twitter. You can use a pseudonym in Twitter. Once you get into Facebook land, they want authenticity. They want to know it is you. But if you want to figure out how to do it safely without worrying about crossing lines or inappropriate things, you can start a personal Twitter account. And as long as you remember, and I've heard this said a number of different ways, but as long as you remember, anything you say, you are technically saying in public. If you wouldn't mind your mom hearing what you're saying, or if you put by your phone a picture of your grandmother before you tweet and realize she's listening, if you are cognizant of that and can avoid vulgarity and anything that might really offend someone that, like your mother or your grandfather or your close friends or whatnot, there's no real way to do wrong in social media. Again, we're talking personal here. We're not. There's a lot more limitations once you get to your practice. But this way you can find out what it's like, see what works and see what doesn't. Because contrary to what some publishers and authors would say, there is no one way to do Twitter. There is no one way to do Facebook. This is the blessing and curse of social media. Social media is really authentic and really personal. So how you do a Twitter account is going to be very different from how I do a Twitter account. And because I manage several Twitter accounts, I have a little sort of multiple personality disorder going on because all of them have separate voices. So you can start that way. When you are ready to bring it into your business, again, if you are an organization, you may want to come up with an organizational social media presence. Again, preferably just on one platform to start because it's always something you can grow. And you can start an organizational social media presence, or if you're a small company, just your own personal as a doctor, as a dentist, as a chiropractor, as a massage therapist, whatever, presence, and brand it yourself tied into your company. And start with one thing and start slow and start small and start connecting. Again, if you don't do things that are as long as your mother would approve and you follow the rules that Jane, I'm sure, is about to lay out, you can take it slowly and grow and learn as you go along. So social media can scale to how much time and effort you are able to put into it.
I think it's really important to be able to start small and start with your comfort level. You don't have to be all thing to all people and all social media platforms all at once. But it's probably a good idea to make sure that you're focusing on a couple of key areas. If the very first thing that you need in your business is to let people know that you're out there, because we don't have the white pages and yellow pages anymore, not in a very prevalent way. How can people come and find you? Maybe the first thing to do is find out who else has a presence in social media. So in Alberta, we have a number of primary care networks, and some of them are involved in social media and other links. So if you can create a presence, perhaps starting off, as you suggested, in Twitter, to say ABC Clinic is now in Edmonton, and create a profile for Twitter for ABC Clinic, and you can only use 140 characters to be able to get really, really narrow and very precise about what do people want to know about you. Mm-hmm. So if a clinic, what do you want to hear other people say? I really like going there because. And what was the because? Is it because it was convenient? Because the people were friendly? Because they really knew about this? And try to focus on those couple of key things to create your Twitter profile for your business. And then once you have that Twitter profile in 146 characters or less, then you can link with other members in your community in that geographic area to be able to come up with a presence in that community. And then you might want to be able to expand the content, the whys that you're there, or the stuff that you other people who provide value. That way, in your door to the clinic and say, we're really glad that you're here. Here's our presence on Twitter. We'd love to have you follow us. Then you're getting out in the community, and then those two people tell those two people of their Twitter friends.
Uh-oh, I think we had a mic failure. Oh, there we go. I'm not sure if
I hear you now.
Oh, okay, there we go. I was just going to say that if I can add to what Jean was saying, it's a great idea to talk to your customers and find out what people like about you, whether it's the friendliness, whether it's the expertise, whether it's the knowledge base, what that is. But a very important tip for marketing, and this should connect with all of your marketing, but bad marketing fails faster on social media than it does anywhere else. Don't, now that you've learned why people come to your clinic, just use Twitter to tell people why they should come to your clinic. Don't tell it, prove it. Show, don't tell. If you are being, if your customers are coming to you because of your incredibly intense and diverse knowledge base, and they feel, wow, you really know all this stuff, then what you should be using social media for is to prove your expertise, is to share information that you have, or share blogs, articles, and links that you didn't necessarily create, but that fit with your philosophy, or are the things that you were researching, so that you can be known on Twitter for your expertise and your huge knowledge base. If, on the other hand, people come because they feel so cared for and so just taken care of, and the stress is removed from them, and when they walk into your clinic doors, they know that it's going to be handled. Whether it's going to be okay or not is sometimes in question, depending on what field you're in, but that it's being taken care of, then what you want to do on your Twitter presence is prove that you are a caring provider, that you connect with the emotional needs of your audience, and those are the sort of articles and links that you either create or share. If you are big on the community, and your patients come to you because you're just so connected, you're just such a part of the community, then you should spend a significant portion of your social media sharing things that are going on in your community and supporting other organizations. You'd be amazed how much leverage you get as a social media brand for speaking highly of someone else's company, because that shows you're not just in it for you, that shows you're in it actually for value. And your followers on social media are following because they want value and they want what they want. And I know you want to get your message out to them, but again, it's better to prove that you're a caring organization than just tell people you're a caring organization. It's better to prove your expertise by creating valuable content and sharing it, or finding other valuable content and sharing it, than it is to just say, hey, we're really knowledgeable, because that is kind of meaningless.
Okay, so I think that there's a couple of good parts out of that. One is to be able to leverage from one medium to another. And one of the things that we can use, Twitter, for example, and I'm going to focus a little bit on that because it's a little bit easier to kind of create that Twitter presence. You need to have a website for your business, because otherwise people aren't going to find where you are. You do need to be able to create, and it might be a pretty static website to say, this is the name of the clinic, these are the people that we are, and this is how you find us, and this is our phone number. But then you could add, this is how you can follow us on Twitter. And that Twitter link could be something that becomes a little bit more dynamic to say, we wish everybody a happy Christmas. This is going to be our hours for this week. So you don't necessarily have to go back and change the hours of your practice on your website. You can take that link on Twitter, and maybe there's a link between those two platforms to be able to leverage one to the other. And it does get some content out to the people that are following you and give them a reason to go back to that Twitter account to be able to see who you are and what are you doing most recently.
Mm-hmm. Something important also to keep in mind, there is a danger of creating what I call the content beast. I know this because I created one myself. There was a time when I was handling for myself personally over 10 different social media accounts and platforms between my personal self and my business self. All of them suffered because I couldn't give them enough attention. It's very easy to say, oh, we better get a Facebook page, and oh, we should get a LinkedIn page and a LinkedIn for Business page, and I wonder if we should be doing Pinterest. Yeah, we should probably do Pinterest, and Instagram. Yeah, maybe we should throw some of that in. And suddenly you create all these accounts, and you can't do any of them any justice, and they sit there and languish. And then when people are looking for you online, or they hear about you, because 99% of people, before they actually make a commitment, will go Google you. So if you have all these social media profiles, odds are good those will come up first. If they check them out and they haven't been touched in months, that's more of a negative connotation than a positive connotation. So when you're looking at social media, the thing to start with is, how do you need, what does your business need? How do you need to connect? And that's going to change not only profession to profession, but also different businesses within the same profession. Again, even as I said, proving your expertise or proving your community engagement, those are two different things, two different tactics. And different social media platforms will probably work better for each of those. And as you come up with different social media, you kind of need a strategy of who you want to reach and what message you want to get across, and then you want to find out what is the best platform. Twitter, again, is great because it does help with most of those things. The fact that you've got 140 characters or less really makes you a good writer fast, because you have to cram value into a very small space. So I believe everyone should have a Twitter account, everyone, just to learn how to become a better communicator. But then as you grow and add other platforms, you don't want to just add them because it's, we can do Twitter and we can do Facebook and we can do LinkedIn and we can do all these different things in sort of a horizontal, broad connection strategy, because then you start doing the same messages to all the different platforms, and all the different platforms work differently, so you're spending a lot of time becoming less effective. What you want to do is figure out what you need, what platform or platforms are going to do that best, and then how you use those platforms. And that way, every bit of time you spend doing social media will be that much more effective. Don't post something to Twitter and Facebook because people use them differently. If it's the same content, it's going to fail on one. Or if you've got some of the same followers on both platforms and they keep seeing the same content, they're going to drop off of one, and you've just had a contact that you've lost. Learn the strengths of each of the different platforms, and then see what your needs are. And it's like building a house. Look at the blueprints, which is your strategy. Figure out the tools you're going to need to assemble that house, and then go get those tools. Don't just buy the nicest, biggest, most expensive toolbox with all the great screws and hammers and drill bits in it. If you find out that all you need is your entire house goes together with nails, you've just spent a lot of money and time buying screwdrivers and screws and glue and all this stuff that's not going to be of value, but now you're going to feel compelled to use it all. And that makes your social media larger, unwieldy, less effective, and more of a drain on your resources. So it's better to do something or two things well than it is to try and do it all. And just better for your resources, your time, and your audience.
I think that's a very valuable point. Doing a little bit is well everything. And as a business, you can't do everything by yourself. So from a, there are a couple of lessons here. One, we want to make sure that you are the keeper of the social media message. And to do that well, you need to be able to restrict who has access and authorized presence to be able to contribute to that social media. So it's, even though all of your staff may individually have Facebook accounts and Twitter accounts, it's not appropriate and not acceptable to have each of your staff being able to portray their social media on behalf of the business. You might have one or two or a few really good people that get about how you want to portray your business. And you might want to engage them to be your social media spokesperson or not. That you need to make sure that you have a very clear delineation and education amongst your staff, your professional staff and your support staff, about what is acceptable. What can I as an individual do? How can I as a professional working in this business do? How does it all reflect back to the business? Us. And then can you do that when you are doing your work? So even though you might want to be a follower of your business, you might not actually be the one who is authorized to create that social media presence. So you shouldn't be on social media while you're at work. So you need to have some policies and expectations about what is and what isn't acceptable. And because social media is a changing world and the technology changes with it, I find that often creating those policies comes best by doing it as a scenario. To say, we want to do this. These are the people that have been authorized to do that. And leave it kind of open-ended. Leave it scenario-based rather than very detailed-oriented about who will do what, when, and at what point in time. Having that kind of motherhood statement about how you're going to manage social media might be a good way to get started. The other thing is that if you don't have your in-house experts or you don't have the time in-house to be able to deal with that, that as a business might be a really good thing that you want to outsource. You can outsource your social media marketing, your presence to someone else. You need to make sure that you have a good conversation with them and you feel comfortable with them so that you're talking the same language. And maybe the way to do that is to find out who else is using an outsourced service that you like. And find that that organization that you resonate with is perhaps the one that you want to be able to call on for your help. Guidepost to help you along as you go. Another key piece about being able to manage social media and healthcare is to be able to provide the content. So if you provide content about rehabilitation following motor vehicle accidents, because that's the type of practice that you want to develop. If you can share content about success stories, other organizations who help you do this, other types of about exercises and things, good experiences that people have had about that topic, you're more likely to draw in that type of patient or that type of patient client into your business. So you can leverage different types of social media, bite off a little bit at a time, get good or get help to get good at one or two things at a time, and then slowly develop your presence. That sound like a great way to get started?
Absolutely, absolutely. And just to follow up on something that you said earlier about outsourcing. If you were considering outsourcing, and gratuitous plug, Tom, I do know a guy who does that. I think he's on this webcast. I'm not sure. Um, if you were doing that, the way to encapsulate this is whether you choose him or someone else to track down about doing that. Whoever you talk to better ask you about your voice, and what the voice is of the business. For instance, if you just think of WestJet and Air Canada, the two very different organizations. They have different feel. They have a different voice, and they're very specific about that. WestJet is very good with its social media because they have a very particular voice that ties into the value of their organizations, and then everybody who does social media on behalf of WestJet, and it's more than just one person, um, knows what the voice is, knows what they're trying to accomplish, and that way a couple different people can handle that unified communication because they all get what that voice is. If you are going to outsource your social media, and you can for sure, make sure, one, you figured out what your voice is, and two, that whatever organization you're asking to do that with, one of the questions about fit is, does that organization understand how important that voice is, and do they understand what your voice is? And if you don't have your voice worked out, will they work with you to help figure that voice out? Some organizations are tongue-in-cheek. Some organizations are very professional. Some organizations are really warm and really friendly. Those are three different voices. They're all valid, but they're all different. So, and that will also help if you're going to do your social media in-house and you have one or two or three people who are going to be on that account. You need the policy, but the policy, as Jean said, should be basic and simple. With healthcare, you need to know what you can't say and you can't share. But you'll recall, we don't have email policies in businesses anymore. We don't have phone policies anymore. We don't have fax policies anymore. Very few of us have fax machines anymore. Because social media is becoming a more common part of our communication, a lot of it is common sense. But sometimes you need to remind people what that common sense is. And again, I will always come back to this. If you want social media to be a valuable tool for you to leverage your business, you need to figure out that voice. What is the voice of your business? And then use that voice in your social media channels.
Well, healthcare is probably one of those businesses that still uses the old technology while we're trying to learn the new technology. So we still do have policies about faxes and phone calls and what types of things people can say in the business and out of the business. But we certainly have that extra layer of trying to manage the social media. The industry may be, and our clients want us to use the new technology. So we have to expand our knowledge base and our skills and manage the complications because it's not easy. But you can get started and take a little bit at a time. You don't have to do it all at once, even though the world to have it in all of those different places. You can start with a little bit, and a little bit is better than none.
Absolutely.
So I hope you get started with your business and in your social media platforms. There's lots and lots of sources of information on Google, on YouTube, on our websites, and you can certainly come and see us some more. So this is Jean Eaton of Information Managers, and Randy, Group of Rogues, you get the last word. Any last words of advice?
I was just going to say, if you are in the Edmonton area and you are still a little leery about jumping off the cliff into social media land, I am always available for a coffee. I'm easy to buy for a coffee and can continue to give you some advice if you want to sit and chat about if social media works for your business and how you get in and what you step into. Feel free to contact me. And again, the important thing is that social media has to be authentic. It has to be human. It has to be there has to be a warmth and a genuine nature to it. It can't be an advertising platform where you're going to spend a lot of time and effort, possibly money, and fail at it. So be authentic. You're in the business of health care. Make sure that caring voice comes through in your social media, and it will take you places.
That's a great way to wrap up. Thank you, Randy.
Absolutely. You're welcome.
Okay. So come back for another practice management nugget, and have a great day.
Take care.